everybody. This is Bart Sharp with Becoming Quantum Conscious at United Public Radio Network, UPRN, at 107.7 and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana, and of course worldwide through our beautiful internet, and also broadcasting on Roku, of course YouTube, Facebook, and other platforms, and that gets us out there in all of these amazing ways. We're really thankful for our program directors, Joel Maltado, who's the creator of UPRN, and Michelle Del Rocher for all of their work in getting a big connection out there in the radio internet world. I just want to put a gratitude out to those two peeps, and we're hoping Joe is enjoying the remnants of the hurricane. Maybe it's hitting a little bit in New Orleans. But regardless, we are here today with Stacie, Nicole, Haynes from the Modern Mystery School with the topic, King Solomon the Wise, and that spiritual journey that has continued on for centuries of his teachings that are being practiced currently in the Modern Mystery School, which has, I guess, you have organizations all around the world with Modern Mystery School teaching the practices of Solomon. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think we're in over 60 countries.
I'm sorry?
I said, I think we're in over 60 countries now.
Wow. This is good. And it's very true to a lot of King Solomon's teachings and what he learned, which he was quite a metaphysical guy. Of course, they probably didn't call it that, called it something else like, this is life how it is or something. But King Solomon, the wise of the lineage of King Solomon, can you just give us a little bit of summary about King Solomon and some of his teachings and practices?
Certainly. Thank you, Bart. I appreciate it. Happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invite.
Oh, my pleasure.
So King Solomon the Wise, as his name indicates, he was the wisest man that ever walked the planet. And he was really a visionary, and he wasn't interested in riches. He wasn't interested in conquering. He was interested in world peace. And his mission in life was world peace, and that mission continues today with our lineage in the Modern Mystery School. So, how did our lineage get here? Solomon, being the visionary that he was and continues, I think, to be in all of the metaphysical realms to this day, is he recognized that he didn't have all the answers. And so he sent out messengers all over the world to come and study at his temple, because he also recognized that there wasn't, a magic wand that he could wave across the cosmos and then bam, there would be world peace. He recognized that peace had to be created within each individual. So he sent out messengers all over the world to bring those shamans and high priests and high priestesses, the healers of the world, to come and study at his temple. And they studied for, 20 to 30 years, trying to figure out, what is something that's going to work on every single person, no matter what tribe they're from, if they are male or female, no matter what moon phase the moon is in, or the sun cycles, or anything like that. Something that was a universal system that worked on every single person regardless. And,
wow.
That is where, that's where
that's a big picture.
King Solomon, it's pretty big. That's where the King Solomon healing modalities come from. And that's what we use in our lineage to amplify our infinite potential that lies within.
Wow. So maybe peace might be also a little bit more expanded to just a higher vibration of consciousness or greater love
Absolutely.
within, or, it probably has a lot of other applications with that. I mean, I feel a lot of peace the
Absolutely.
higher vibration I become, uh, peace and
Mhm.
love, just like the 60s.
Mhm.
But of course,
Mhm.
none of us knew what we were doing back then. Uh, I was a 60s child with that. Yeah, and of course, for those who do not know much about Solomon, he came from the lineage of David, as in
Absolutely.
uh, came out of the Temple of David. For
Mhm.
those, and of course, people like the Knights Templar worshipped and practiced the teachings of David, which also
Mhm.
were the teachings of Jesus. All of this is a
Mhm.
sequence there. So there's probably a lot of parallels with the teachings of Jesus, or maybe the ones that we may not be aware of, but some of them that we are aware of that are very much come from Solomon.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus was of the lineage, he's the house of David, right? So he was the
Yes.
lineage of Solomon as well. So, absolutely, it's funny as I continue my studies, I find more and more references to ancient texts where I'm like, oh, this is where the parables came from Christ, and
Ah,
oh, this teaching, is seen here, and so it's really interesting to see all of those different correspondences and the different connectivity throughout time and space.
yeah, yeah. That's a great word, throughout time and space. It appeared to be, in what I've studied with the modern mystery school, as I've been reading up on it, is, and also I've received some activations, a couple of activations, which were really quite phenomenal.
Hmm.
But it does work in this relationship between the body and the universe, and all the places in the
Hmm.
universe we're connected to create this greater communion with such cosmic sources.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I mean, I
For
thought that
sure.
was really phenomenal, and it seemed to be that that's a lot of the work of the modern mystery school and King Solomon, to learn how every individual can have such a expanded communion with such sources.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, and I think that, like you talked about peace earlier, and peace is the mission of our lineage, the mission of Solomon, and there's different threads of peace, and the way that I look at it is, each individual accepting every single person that is around them, regardless of where they come from or how they were raised, or perhaps their status in life. So just true acceptance, and not only accepting them, but honoring them as a god goddess
mhm.
standing in front of them. Because one of the main teachings of our lineage is that you are God. And so recognizing that everyone is God. And it's not like, oh, I'm God, I have this God complex, but it's truly recognizing that divinity within each individual, honoring it and celebrating it, because that truly, I mean, do you think the world would be a little bit different today if every single person on the planet, had that within themselves?
If they took it on with humility and not grandiosity,
Oh,
I totally
totally.
agree with like,
Mhm.
as one of your principles of the modern mystery school, or was is that humans are made from divine substance.
Mhm.
That, and when I say divine substance, what does that mean to you?
Oh, well, I mean, we were all created, in the image of God. And what I mean, that means that God looked like us, right? Looked like a
Hmm.
humanoid kind of form. So yeah, what does that mean? It's just we looked at God and said, we want to be like you. And God said, okay, we're going to create you. And so we were created in that image. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, and I would imagine it just goes even deeper than that, that light within us is very much of that divine substance, and that process of
Absolutely.
learning what that is, and which would seem to be what the modern mystery school is about, is how do you learn that vibration?
How do you, well, the first step is knowing yourself, right? How do you know
Yeah.
God? You have to know yourself. And how do you know yourself? Through service to others and helping others to recognize that they too are God and that they have that divine spark innate and inherent within them, and then
Yes.
bringing awareness to that aspect of themselves, and then letting all of the magic happen from there. It's a lot of, unraveling, unwinding, and unlearning the things and the people that we were taught, like, you are, this way and you will be this way. And a lot of the ways that we were taught in life, unfortunately, are quite limiting. I mean, that's just the reality, and it has nothing to do with I'm a victim because I was raised this way. It's just, okay, all right, I'm aware now that this is what is in this moment, but I, as a God being, have the power to undo that and become greater than who I am in this moment.
That's a great way to put it. I mean, there's a lot of humility with that perspective, but it's also
Mm-hmm.
very practical that I do have issues. Maybe I'm
Sure.
too angry or I feel ashamed of myself, but yet there's something much bigger inside of me that if I can do the work, I can get there.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's a lot of what this is. It's very practical, but yet, as
Mm-hmm.
you know, you have to do that type of work if you really wish to soar in the heavens.
Yes. And
Yeah.
a lot of people aren't necessarily ready to do that deep inner work. And I can speak from experience, and I think you know me. It's been tough. It's hard,
Yep.
it's hard to look at yourself. And I think one of the biggest fruits for myself in this path has been my own self-responsibility and self-accountability, and holding myself accountable for my own progression, and holding myself accountable for the things that I want to become and the things that,
Hmm.
again, that I'm not. So it's not an easy feat, because we get really stuck in comfort, and comfort on the path of progression is completely and totally the wrong way to approach becoming greater than yourself. And a lot of people just want to be comfortable, but that's not this
Comfortable
path.
in your limitations.
Yeah,
Uh,
as comfortable in your
Comfortable in our habits.
limitations.
Yes, yes, because they're so habitual and our brain
Mm-hmm,
wants to function that way
mm-hmm,
because we know those patterns so well. And the brain says, well, this is an efficient system because you've done it so well. You've done it so long that we want to
mm-hmm,
stick with it. And
mm-hmm.
just thinking of that, I know it sounds like there is that practical side of knowing yourself and knowing your issues. But
Mm-hmm.
maybe you could share a little bit about the modern mystery school and how they would approach something like that.
Knowing yourself.
Yeah, and resolving those issues.
Oh, yeah, quite simple. The number one way is through initiation. That's easy. It's so easy. It's the easiest thing for someone to do, and yet is the hardest step that I've watched people take, because when you step onto the path of initiation in the lineage of King Solomon through the modern mystery school, you are stepping into your divinity and your soul's progression in a way that you have never done so in the past, regardless if you've received initiations or other activations or spiritual teachings. But this is a way that is going to accelerate your progress and your progression in your life unlike anything else. And I can stand or sit here today and say that because I've done it for myself. You've watched me do it as well. You've watched a few other people do it as well. But initiation, it truly is magic how it works. And this is a path of healing as well. So, we do healings as well to help us kind of unravel those different aspects that are not us. But initiation, there's something very special about it that allows you to strip things away faster and easier than if you're just coming at it from perhaps a psychological perspective or a mindfulness perspective or an emotional perspective, because this is working to fuse and bridge you spiritually and physically in a way that I haven't seen before.
Wow.
The other way, which I also recommend, is the Universal Hermetic Kabbalah Ascension Journey, because that really helps you to dig into those more specific pieces of yourself that need to be unraveled.
And what I was just thinking, the first one of the initiation, it sounds like you were bringing in something ancestral to this picture. I mean, we have our ancestry. I think something in dysfunctional behaviors. We're getting a lot of feedback right now.
There is, of course, somebody blowing leaves outside my door right this moment. I apologize.
Okay, that's it. All right, good enough. But our dysfunctions always want us to be alone with our problems. We want to isolate with our repressed emotions. That seems to be a strong tendency for the human mind and brain. However, when you do an initiation, you were saying, I'm part of something much bigger, and something much bigger is going to help me in this process. I will never be alone again.
Correct.
This process. Yeah, that's phenomenal. I think that's a big step in change for people.
Yeah.
They can really step that up. Yeah.
Well, when you receive initiate, can you hear me okay? Sorry. I don't know how to make this person go away, but I'm not surprised they're out there.
Okay, are they playing music?
It's, he's blowing leaves.
He's what?
Yeah. He's blowing leaves.
Oh.
Yeah.
We can't just.
Yeah, I mean.
I understand.
Yeah,
right.
it actually, before we move on to that next piece, it actually brings up a really key point, I think, which is resistance on this path and how resistance will show up in your soul's progression. And today we're broadcasting live for, hundreds, thousands of people all over the world. And of course, there was two major construction things that I had to overcome to get here physically. We've got this beautiful sounding man outside. So, I mean, this resistance is always a key indication to me that we're on the right track, and that there's things that maybe are trying to push up against it, but we as divine beings have to just push through and be like, okay, I acknowledge this man out here and appreciate you. Please go further down the way so that
it doesn't sound like a leaf blower. It sounds like some sort of spiritual instrument, that they're playing outside. And I'm thinking, because you work out of an office, I have a friend that does sound healing, and he's doing his session right now. And I'm like,
No.
What?
I asked everyone to please stay out of my office today because of this. So, yeah, it's great. It's great. I know that we're doing the right thing here, Bart. Confirmation received. Thank you.
I know. It's so funny. The last show had a lot of feedback on it, and I've been, of course, addressing it. And all of a sudden, we have a leaf blower. So you're so right that it always adversity brings up lessons. Adversity brings up ways that we can grow, whatever that may be, which is a lot about knowing yourself and knowing your fears. For me, it's like, well, what's what am I afraid of that I have another show that has feedback, and I have to look about that and be willing to receive it and embrace that fear.
Yeah.
Then I must.
And it's probably also it's also an indication again that every show you have the right host on, because if you're receiving various types of feedback, then that's that indicator of you're on the right track.
Yes, and speaking of feedback, anybody that's on the chat that wishes to join in and ask questions or make comments, we welcome them. And if you have a question for Stacie, we'd love to hear it. And just to let everybody know, since we're kind of on a little lull, this is the United Public Radio Network, UNPR, out of New Orleans, Louisiana, and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 107.7 and 105.3 on Roku, Facebook, YouTube, and other platforms all around the world. And this is Becoming Quantum Consciousness. My name is Bart Sharp, and this is Stacie Nicole Haynes from the Modern Mystery School with the Wisdom of Salomon. And Salomon, we were talking about, because there's where the temple was is a very sacred place, and at one time it was the temple of David, then it became the sepulcher, and what a friend of mine says is that they're building a new temple there. The sepulcher is going to be replaced, and the prophecy is, I love this prophecy. Ready? Drum roll. When the third temple is built, the world will know peace. Which is exactly. Beautiful. Yeah. So we're hoping, and I'll say I'm very curious to see how all of that works out. And so tell us about. We were talking about this topic. Because I was asking you, well, was King Solomon in the sepulcher or was he in the Temple of David? And there's a lot of unknown, because Solomon was around 2500 BC. 3500, no. He was around 3500 years ago, so that means 1500 BC. That was after the Great Flood of 8000 BC. And there was a lot of changes on the planet around that time. And yet he was a big vestige of holding the space where angels, maybe extraterrestrials, communion with other planets, and all of this other practical metaphysical stuff had a place to thrive. But can you just tell us a little bit what you've heard about the temples, and go wherever you want to go with it?
Sure. Let's see. Okay, so our lineage and the teachings of our lineage were kept secret for thousands of years. And it was kept secret because it was for the elite of society. And you actually had to be invited into the lineage in order to become, an initiate. And so what you'll find are quite a few differences in the teachings within history and the teachings within our lineage. So as far as, specific locations and things like that, I don't have that according to our lineage, or at least I haven't received that myself just yet.
Mhm.
As you progress in this path, more and more is revealed to you as the initiate. So I'm sure that there's something within our lineage in regards to the temples like that. But when you were speaking earlier about the third temple being created, and when that temple is created, we will, receive world peace, or peace will reign supreme. My question to you is, do you think that that is going to be a physical temple, or perhaps that is the temple within the individual human?
Well, I think it all leads to the temple within the individual human, just like, the return of Christ as so far the scripture forecasts, that is an
Yeah.
individual journey where more people
Mm-hmm.
learn their higher self, which I think very much is
Mm-hmm.
simpatico with the modern mystery schools. But to answer your question more directly, they are building the temple physically.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is
It
what I'm
makes
told.
sense. It makes
How's
sense though,
that?
hermetically, right? So hermetically, we're a hermetic lineage, we're a Kabbalistic lineage, but the principle of correspondence is as above, so below, as within, so without. And so it makes sense to me that, our mission in the lineage of King Solomon is to create that inner peace temple within the individual. And so what are they doing right now is we're constructing that within humanity. It's being constructed physically as a temple right now. So
Wow.
I think that's a really beautiful indication that, again, we're on the right track. We are
I love
headed
that.
in the right direction. Mm-hmm.
I so agree. That's a wonderful
Mm-hmm.
thought that you just bring up, and that it's all of our own working and our own responsibility to be a part of that. But isn't that what consciousness is so much about? It's almost like, from what I get at King Solomon, it was an invitation to become more, and it wasn't under his authority and rule, but more of an invite for everybody to learn.
Yeah.
Almost like you had choice with what aspect
Mm-hmm.
you wanted to develop, but they all
Mm-hmm.
come together and something
Mm-hmm.
really does grow
Well,
that way.
yeah, and one of the old sayings is, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So more and more people today they're ready. They're ready for that shift within themselves and their lives, and to become greater than who they are when they woke up in the morning. And this lineage really has provided that for me 100%.
Yeah. And the modern mystery school is just, I'm sure, is expanding exponentially over the last
Hmm.
20, 40 years, something like that.
Hmm.
Just as
Yeah.
consciousness is opening up.
Yeah, so the lineage was open to the public in 1997. And it started very small, and now over the past, what is that, like, uh, 26 years, it's grown to, like I said, or earlier I said, over 60 countries worldwide, and it might be more than that at this point. I was teaching in London this spring, and we had people from countries all over the world, from Brazil to South Africa to Israel, the UK, we had Romania, of course, the US. And so it was a really, it's almost kind of like a mini example of, Solomon sending out that call to all of the healers of the world, and then coming into the temple. And then the students are ready from all over the world to step into higher service and to learn more about who they are by providing the life activation for individuals. And honestly, Bart, it was the most beautiful experience that I've ever had the honor of witnessing, to watch these students grow through that 5 days and see them transform and really step into their divinity in a way that they are recognizing that God goddess within the person that they're serving, and the reverence that they hold for them in their heart. It was incredible. I really can't say enough good things about that. But yeah, I highly recommend the path of initiation, and I highly recommend learning how to do the life activation, because that is key in shifting that consciousness throughout humanity, because we only need 3% to wake up to create that temple of peace within humanity.
It is. The people who are more in light, in whatever modality you choose, influence thousands to millions of people. This is a concept that so many of us believe in, and it's why we are doing various forms of work. I do shamanism and work on emotional limitations that are stuck in the body. And at the same time, when you release enough stuff, just like you were saying, know yourself, there's lighter vibrations, and you could call them light. You could call them something that feels higher within yourself. It can connect to galactic things, but it's also connected to Earth. It could just be connecting with your heart within your body, but they all kind of go to the same place. Just what you're saying, a light activation. And so be a part of the 3%ers.
Be the 3%.
Yeah. In the 3%. And it is wonderful.
We should make T-shirts.
Exactly. And when you're around a group like that in London, what does it feel like to, everybody gets turned on at the same time. And we're all magnifying that for each other.
Yeah. So something that the path of initiation provides, when, an individual who steps onto that path, initially, before they receive initiation, they have what we call 1 times the light. So they are a beautiful candle of light shining out in the world. And then when you receive the initiation, it looks like a knighting ceremony. So when you receive that initiation, and there's an integration period after the initial initiation, you receive 10 times the light. So that means that you're 10 times brighter, you have 10 times more capacity to affect change in your life, 10 times more authority to create in your life and work with what's called the hierarchy of light, because that's what you're being initiated into as an adept. And there's a class that I teach called Empower Thyself. And you are initiated as an adept into the lineage of King Solomon, receiving 10 times the light. When you go to something like Healer's Academy, it's another 10 times the light. So it's 100 times the light from where you started. And then when you become a guide, when you become a guide like me, there's another 10 times that you receive. So it's 1,000 times the light. And then there's an additional path within the lineage called Ritual Master. Actually, we have an initiation into the Knights Templar through the Ritual Master path. And a Ritual Master is unquantifiable in the light that you hold at that point in time. But, the initiations, again, that's a really big key into stripping away all of those parts that are not you. And it just makes it's an expedited process. And so it's for people that are really serious and want to dig deep, because it is not easy. And it takes a lot of grit and dedication, but what is your North Star?
Well, that's true. That's true with all of them, of those spiritual processes. If you really want to have it, you have to practice. Even
You
though
got to
there are
practice
some
what
people.
you preach.
Yeah, and you got to practice to become. But yet, when you talk about being anointed with a wand, there's probably some big transference of all the tradition, the ancestries, the teachings of Solomon that, when you think of just that one single man, it's probably so much more than that. It's all the beings and uh, traditions and people that were all connected to him, all in a focused place. All of that probably comes through.
Yep.
And
Totally.
and that's a big package.
It's a lot.
It is. And even though it's 3,500 years old, it's still alive and vibrating. It's still valid. And that's one thing people have to understand is this stuff goes beyond time and space. And so you get that big package. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say it's there's just so much that you receive, and it's the trainings are 2 days for Empower Thyself. Healers Academy is 5 days, depending on what you do for Ritual Master. It could be 2 to 5 days, but it's so much more than just going and sitting in a classroom for 2 days. Like this is accelerating your progression through space and time, and accelerating the progression of your soul and your spirit in such a way that it's just an incredible honor to witness.
So you're not just sitting on your butt in your head thinking about this stuff. You are living it and practicing it and doing it during a workshop.
Yeah, it's very interactive, and I try to have a lot of fun with my students, because you're going to learn so much better if you're having fun, if you're laughing. The angels want you to laugh. Like it's like the fastest way you can communicate with the angels is to just have laughter and joy. And so it is a very energetic process in the class. There's a lot of energy coming in. Some people do get stuck in the mind. It's totally normal, because we've been conditioned to be that way, to think of things from a mental level. But our journey is really to transcend that and allow ourselves to have that higher perspective of everything that is just right there available to us if we just look up and I'm like, oh, there it is, right there. I can pull that
right
down.
There. It's like there's a little veil only separating us.
There is. Yeah.
And just there it is. Yeah, it's so amazing how you can work that, and there always are people that are totally trying to get it, and they're in their heads. They don't feel this stuff. And what advice would you give to that type of person? I mean, I have my own points of view with that, but any insights?
That's a great question. Or what advice would I give to that person is, everyone experiences the world differently, and everyone has completely different gifts. And when I stepped onto this path, I thought I wasn't psychic, because the person that brought me to the path, she was super psychic. She could see like fairies in this dimension and angels, and I was just like, oh well, I guess I'm not psychic. But the lineage gives you different tools that you can work with every day to open up your senses in a different way. And we have meditation, astral travel, rituals, prayer, initiation, any of those things, they're going to help to open you up. So if you're interested in cultivating those gifts within you, I've consistently seen it change people's lives and open people up in different ways, that if you have that discipline and the drive to put the work in, these tools will change you. There's just no other option. It's going to change you for the better, and you are going to live a life of joy and understand yourself in relation to the universe in a completely different way.
Yeah, I like that. And I like to add to that, um, becoming psychic and developing these extrasensory abilities is very sensual. And I'm not talking in a sexual
Totally.
form. I'm talking about
No.
that you feel things with your body and you pay attention to all of these sensations, and your body's trying to show you your own path of sensuality, of the sense of feeling your angels, or uh, energies coming in from the stars, or the vibration of your own heart, or the light within you. There's so many different concepts, and there's going to be one that particularly stands out if you practice and try enough at this stuff, and that's that crossing over. It's kind of like, oh, I finally found how to balance myself on a bicycle, you know.
Yeah.
And once you get it, you're kind of on a new journey. You can now pedal down the street. Yeah, it's all of those things. I imagine Solomon was doing some of these things, and my envision of that guy and that temple was, they were communing with ET and angels, and it was like that veil maybe did not exist. That it was very direct, all of those possibilities. When I think of the ancient Egyptians, I really think that, well, they really did commune. They did have relationships with ET, and there was this thing going on, and maybe he was one of those holdouts of that consciousness, that explain why that built pyramids and things like that. He was that maybe one of those last great consciousnesses of an old era.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. You guys have said, no, we're public. We have nothing to hide as of 1997. We're going to bring it out and show it to the world. Because when I thought of the Modern Mystery School, I always thought, oh, it's all of these secrets, secrets. But everything I've talked to you about this topic, it's like, no, there's no secrets. If you want to do the courses, come on, and you'll learn what we're doing. Are you ready to play with
there's
that?
a lot. There's a lot that is revealed within the classes, for sure. And what I've experienced myself in the classes, and what I've witnessed in the students that I have taught, is that opening and really, recognizing these different aspects of themselves and allowing those aspects to blossom.
Yeah. Exactly. And I just wanted to add in, I'm going to do a little bit of programming. You are on United Public Radio, UPRN, and UFO Paranormal Radio, 107.7 and 105.3 on Roku, Facebook, and YouTube and other platforms all around the world. My name is Bart Sharp, and my website is bartsharp.com. I'm a shaman. I write books. Latest one is Magic Speaks. And we are here with Stacie Nicole Haynes from the Modern Mystery School, talking about Salomon the Wise and the Modern Mystery School, which is a worldwide phenomenon bringing out the ancient teachings of Solomon and bringing them into a practical format that people can learn to live in light. And what a wonderful thing. And, I'm just fascinated with some of the activations. Like, you have a starseed activation, which I wondered if you could describe some of that, of like bringing in that star consciousness or galactic consciousness.
Yeah, so I think what you're referring to is the starseed healing within the King Solomon physical region healing modality.
That sounds
I have
juicy.
received. It is. It's 10 sessions. It's amazing. It'll completely change you. I don't do that session myself, but I have received it, and it was. I remember when I did receive it. It was. So, okay, we've talked a little bit about initiation, right? And you're receiving 10 times the light with initiation, 100 times the light, 1,000 times the light. But if you look at our physical bodies, they're not always able to hold all of that light very comfortably, I would say, or it might get a little uncomfortable, which, like, we're not against discomfort, but we have things that are going to help us to integrate the light from those initiations in a much better way to accelerate the process, right? So we have the King Solomon physical healing modalities to help with that. There's a bunch of other King Solomon modalities as well, but this one is what you're asking about. So when I received that session, I was very resistant. We've talked about resistance a little bit today, but I was very resistant to start this healing series. And that session is one of the first sessions that you receive. And I remember going into it, I didn't realize it at the time, but I felt like I was like a Coke bottle that had been shaken up, and like all the carbonation, the light was just like looking for a place to go, looking for a place to expand, but it didn't have anywhere to go. And so once I received that session, it was like my container expanded so that I could hold all of the light for my initiations. So that session is, it's really, really cool. But going back to the galactic piece, we actually have something called the Galactic Activation, which comes from the Galactic Federation. And there's a particular tribe within the Galactic Federation called the Nathors, which is where this galactic activation comes from.
So hang on. Could you explain what the Galactic Confederation is? Because a lot of people probably have no idea what you're talking about.
So, surprise, there are aliens. And the Galactic Federation is, in the lineage, we work with something called the hierarchy of light. And these are beings of light, the angels, archangels, Jesus, ascended masters. These are beings of light that are here to help humans progress and, reach their end goal. Which we talk about this in Empower Thyself. So the Galactic Federation is within the hierarchy of light. So they are the extraterrestrial beings of light that are here to also help humans progress. Because if you can imagine, everyone, the human race is important, not just on Earth, but throughout the multiverse. So our progression and us fulfilling our mission is kind of important. And so we have these different beings within the Galactic Federation that are also like, okay, we got to help these humans because clearly they need our help. They're not figuring it all out on their own. So they handed down what's called the Galactic Activation to help us get there faster. And this really helps us to become more in touch with our galactic nature, because we as humans, surprise, again, we're aliens. We're out there.
Or at least a lot of us are.
So we have the Galactic Activation to help us to, really accelerate and get in touch with our galactic nature. And, really we have the life activation, the full spirit. The life activation is it's working with your physical body, your soul body, and your spirit body, but it's working primarily with the physical. And what Salomon noticed is we have 24 strands of DNA, right? So when you're doing the life activation for a client, you're lighting up those 24 strands. And what he noticed is the last two strands, they would light up and then they would go out. So he spent,
Wow.
his life trying to figure out like, what is the deal here? And it was the galactic component that came in the 90s that allowed us to light up those last two strands. So galactic activation, life activation, full spirit activation, which is also integrating your soul body in more with your physical and spirit body. And then of course, initiation are really, that is like the way to ascend. Like it's the
Wow.
best way that I found. I know there's tons of ways out there, but I've watched it change hundreds of thousands of people and their lives and help them to really step into themselves in a different way. So it's really cool that we have this available to the public.
It does, and you do this type of stuff as your work. You do this activation with private sessions and stuff. So if somebody wanted to come in and, excuse me?
I don't do galactic activation. So galactic, I do full spirit and life activation, and of course initiation with Empower Thyself. But galactic activation is actually a 2-day class where you also receive the teachings of the Galactic Federation in how to really, become greater in your life. And again, like it's all according to their tradition, right? So it's a little bit, it's not different. It definitely parallels ours, but it's their teaching. So you receive that over the 2 days.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's quite a bit. I just wanted to throw in a little pitch there for you that you work out of Austin, Texas, but do you do sessions out of Zoom or over the internet, anything like that?
I don't. So the really unique thing about our lineage is that you as the client actually need to be in the physical body aura of someone that, has been handed down these teachings and the classes and the sessions and stuff, because there's so much going on energetically that it can't really be transferred via Zoom or online.
Okay. All right. So Stacie works out of Austin, but I know Stacie, I guess we've known each other for about 7 years or so. She likes to travel.
I think so now. Wow. The hierarchy of light is always sending me somewhere.
Yeah. So this is a traveling girl with all of these projects going on abroad. And you can also find her with her website, Stacie Nicole Haynes, Haynes, or you can find her on Instagram and be able to connect with her and ask her lots of questions about that. And we're coming to our end. Is there any wisdom that you would like to impart to our audience today as a final word?
Yeah, I think that there is so much that is available to us out there. And one of the biggest things that we teach in this path is discernment and discerning, what is going to serve me in my highest and greatest good, and what is really like, where am I going in my life? Where do I want to go? Who do I really want to be? And then choosing someone to mentor you. If you look at athletes out there, Olympists and stuff like that, they don't just start running one day and they're like, I'm going to do this all by myself. They get mentors to help them to become better. And I think that that's something that's really important for people to find a mentor that you look up to, that you are inspired by, somebody that you are just, I don't want to say you're putting them on a pedestal, not at all, but just someone that you're like, wow, this person is so in tune and I want to be like that, but I want to be like that in the way that I'm supposed to be like that. So if you're looking for a mentor, choose someone like that,
Yeah. I almost like to kind of copy their energy. You don't have to do exactly what they say, but you find your own path. That's a wonderful thought. And we're running out of time. Stacie, thank you so much for being on the show. And once again, if you'd like to connect with Stacie, her website is Stacie, and that's Stacie, Stacie Nicole Haynes, Haynes, .com. Thank you so much for being on the show. Next
Thank
week,
you.
yes, we have another out there show with Justin James, who has incarnated. No, he's always been James the Just. In other words, every lifetime, and he's recalled them all. I've met this man and spent some time with him, of all of his incarnations, and they've all been James the Just. In other words, James has moved on through the incarnations in his body wherever he shows up throughout all lifetimes. So we're going to have a conversation with James the Just, who happens to be the older brother of Jesus. So we're going to have some really great stories about Jesus's life and Jesus's secret life. No, seriously, it's going to be a lot more fun than that. So join us next week on Becoming Quantum Conscious. And I'm Bart Sharp, and this is United Public Radio and UFO Paranormal Radio, and we wish you a wonderful day and see you next week. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you, Stacie.
Bye. Thank you.